you get to a part of a career where the band is basically influenced by themselves,
Yes.
and they're making safe, super competent albums that the fans are like, it's easy to love, but it's easy to complain about at the same time, right? And
So
you
interesting.
get that in these
Yes.
chapters,
I
right?
wanted
And
to
I
ask you
see
about
that,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I see that in all our heavy metal stuff, and every single band pretty much eventually comes around. And then you're either saying, oh, I love this, this sounds like the old Cure, or this album or this album or this album. Heart is a great example of this as well. Kiss is a great example. You think of Sonic Boom and Monster, it's the same kind of thing where it's like, it's either the best thing they've ever done and it sounds totally like it could have come out in the 70s, or as most Kiss fans will do, because they're all angry, they complain about them, and say, oh, they're crap, right? They're just boring, safe, whatever.
Is there a point, because you followed artists and bands throughout careers for, bands who've been around for a long time, is there a point where every band or artist gets to where they've reached their creative peak, or is it the fault of maybe the record labels, the radio stations, the media for ignoring anything new or dangerous from an artist?
Yeah, it's
Or does the
interesting.
well run dry?
Well, I think it's different for everybody. I mean, there's people like Iggy Pop, for example, who try wildly crazy different things, sometimes on later albums, right? Just they go way off concept and do something bizarre, right? A French jazz album or whatever, right? Um, but so this play it safe and make a professional version of your greatest highlights thing happens with a lot of bands. And like I say, generally, those records aren't hated, but they're not loved a lot either. So they're usually kind of accepted. And they're there. And as time goes on, I think the value of those albums rises, because as time goes on, they just become part of the past, and part of the whole thing as well. Because I've noticed this with going on video shows and talking to people. When a fan comes in on a band super late, everything in the past is just one clump in the past. They aren't back. They aren't complaining about where they fit in the catalog. It's like it's
Exactly.
all a long time ago, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think in this case, it's certainly not the label telling them what to do. I think that those times are over, because the stakes these days are, even starting as far back as about 2005. I think the stakes are not super high with selling a lot of records, anyways. So the bands are doing what they want to do. Have they reached their creative peak and stuff? That's a whole nother philosophical discussion too. It's like, sometimes you go, well, it's sensible that anybody in any profession just gets better and better and better and better at it all the time. They have more smart things to say. They're smarter people in their 50s and 60s, right? They're supposed to have more life experience, and probably could write better lyrics. Why can't they write better music? Why aren't they just, on the objective face of it, better guitarists than they were in the past? So you would think that would be the sensible thing. But then there's that whole other argument that I've heard people eloquently put and say, you got to literally be hungry, to make great art. You got to want it, so you got to need it so bad that
Right.
you literally are missing meals on the road because you have no money. You're living off of the peanut butter sandwiches, right? Or worse, ketchup sandwiches or whatever, right? You hear those stories. Oh, we went on the road, man. Between us, all we went in and bought a loaf of bread and a
Yes.
jar of uh, um, what's that stuff called, cheese whiz, right? And that was
Steve
our meal for
Steven
the day, right?
Steven Adler of Guns N' Roses, he wrote in his book that he used his drumsticks so they could start a little fire to cook their
Oh
food
my god,
in that
yeah,
one room apartment they all lived in.
unbelievable,
But
yeah.
there is something to be said for that. Yeah,
Yes.
I would
So
say.
yeah, and the sort of parallel story of that is, do you make your best music when you're in your 20s? That's a huge debate, right? And why
Well,
would you make your best music? And then you think back to our own youths and say, we were more impetuous and crazier and took bigger risks. So probably these bands took bigger risks with their creativity because they didn't know what they didn't know. So they just leapt in, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why the art is better in your 20s later on, because later on you know too much, and you know what mistakes not to make, so you're just you turn in something safe.
Maybe the argument against that is David Bowie, though. That last album he put out, critics loved it, fans loved it, and he wasn't making the same album,
Yeah.
right? That was Black Star.
Well, and I'm starting on one of these books, like the Cure book on Robert Plant, and you want to talk about a guy who's just like way just an
Oh, yes.
explorer of sounds and weirdness. I mean, Robert Plant's last albums, granted, they sound similar to each other, but they certainly are an old guy being super creative
Yes.
and going to wild places
Which I've
and
always
loving
loved.
music and being a
Always loved that.
musicologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such
So that's
respect for
really
that.
cool about him. You know,
Yeah.
he's certainly not making Led Zeppelin albums or even Principle of Moments or Pictures at 11 all over again. He's not even
Absolutely.
using conventional drums and stuff. I mean, it's literally just wild, crazy music and really wild production values.